Hi everybody, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show, where we watch old 16mm films, and that was some home movies from a trip to the West Indies via ship. Some of you commented it was a very slow trip. Air travel certainly has shortened that. And you got to see a little bit of the onboard ship activities. Well, you got to see a lot of onboard ship activities. At the end, there was, of course, the weird steeplechase horse race game. And then the swimming pool made out of a tarp that they kind of had between like all these steel walls and a pump that was pumping seawater into it. That was a swimming pool back in the day. So I like looking at footage like that. It gives us a sense of how people traveled, sense of class, and what class was like at different times. And just what it meant. Going to the West Indies meant it was more than an extended weekend. It was probably a month-long trip. And we used to have long vacations where we would travel across the United States, or we would travel all across Europe. We don't have that anymore as much. Anyways, 16mm, that's what we do here. And I want to say thank you right off the bat to William for donating some coffee to us. He went to ko-fi.com/avgeeks and bought us some coffee, which we will spend on coffee, or we will spend on any of the other supplies that we use here at AV Geeks when we get films to be scanned. Speaking of which, behind me I have the film scanner set up, and we're going to watch a film, The History of Helicopters. There's another form of travel. Enjoy.
In recent years, a new dimension has been added to flying: vertical flight by helicopter. The very speed on which the aeroplane depends can sometimes be a handicap. Only a helicopter can hover. Only a helicopter could reach this storm-bound lighthouse. Vertical movement was man's first vision of flight. For centuries, he tried to copy the free, controlled flight of birds and insects. He hadn't the eye of the slow-motion camera to follow the subtlety of wing movement of birds, such as the hummingbird, but his attempts were brave enough. Not succeeding, he gave flight divinity and held it blasphemous to try to reach the stars. But men of vision, like Leonardo da Vinci, continued to search for a means to fly. He experimented with flapping wings and whirling wings. It was he who applied the word helix, meaning spiral, to whirling wings. Helix, combined with pteron, meaning wing, becomes helicopter. Leonardo da Vinci's whirling wing design was similar to the Chinese top, a toy whose origin is lost in early Chinese history. The top consists of a pair of wings at the head of a stick. About 2.5 centuries after Leonardo's death, an Englishman, Sir George Cayley, developed a more elaborate top on similar lines. His interest had been aroused by a model made by Lannoy and Bienvenu in France. The Lannoy and Bienvenu top consisted of 2 sets of wings, which rotated in opposite directions. Its unusual flight caused a sensation when demonstrated before the Academy of Sciences at Paris. By now, men had learned that if the blades of a wing or propeller are set level, they will only whirl when rotated. But if they are set at an angle and then rotated, the blades will produce lift. Cayley gave to the world the first plans for a man-carrying helicopter, the aerial carriage. His lead was followed by many others throughout the 19th century. But they all lacked a sufficiently light and powerful engine. At the end of the 19th century, men like Ponton d'Amicourt and Foligny were trying to adapt steam engines to aircraft, but without success. Others, notably the Wright brothers, were working on fixed-wing airplanes. The development of the gasoline engine, which utilizes an easy-to-handle fuel, made possible man's first successful full-scale flight in 1903. Had the first successful flight been achieved with a rotary wing helicopter, the history of flight might have been different. The achievement of the Wright brothers overshadowed all others and established the fixed-wing aircraft. But the moving wing still had its advocates. For the first 30 years of the century, they went on trying to make machines which would rise vertically into the air. In 1907, Breguet produced the first helicopter to leave the ground with a pilot aboard. The machine was unstable, but it did prove that the rotating wing aircraft was feasible. But all these early machines were unstable, and for safety, the aircraft had to be tethered to the ground. The stability of a rotary wing aircraft is particularly difficult. First, the rotation of the blades tends to make the body of the machine turn in the opposite direction. This can be counteracted either by a small vertical tail rotor driven by the same engine as the main rotor, or by two sets of main rotors revolving in opposite directions. Secondly, when the machine moves forward, one blade of the rotor is moving with the airflow, while another is moving against it. The airspeed of a blade increases as it turns towards the nose. This produces unequal lift and therefore instability. The answer to this problem was to hinge the blades so that they could flap and could also speed up or slow down relative to each other. Juan de la Cierva discovered this and so managed to smooth out much of the irregularity of lift. This solved another problem. As the blades of the rotor are no longer rigidly fixed, they are held in position only by centrifugal force. The whole structure is therefore relieved of a great deal of strain. The Cierva aircraft, like this C-19, all use this principle of the flapping blade, but they were not helicopters. They were autogyros. In an autogyro, the propeller produces forward motion, and the rotor is turned by the aerodynamic forces acting on it, and not by the engine. The autogyro was in fact an aeroplane on which the wings were replaced by a rotor. The ordinary autogyro could not take off vertically, although its takeoff run was very short. In later years, vertical takeoff was achieved in the autogyro by coupling the engine to the rotor. This principle could be used only for the takeoff. Meanwhile, work on helicopters went on. In 1930, Florine showed his machine with a new flapping blade to the public at the Brussels exhibition. In the same year, Descanio established the first world helicopter record with a flight of 8 3/4 minutes, covering 1,000 yards at a height of 59 feet. He reached a speed of about 15 miles per hour. 6 years later, in 1936, the pioneer Breguet came to the front with a much improved design in which the problems of control were tackled with considerable success. Records were established with this machine. Duration, 63 minutes. Altitude, 515 feet. Distance, 27½ miles at a speed of 62 miles per hour. Breguet used what is today known as cyclic pitch control. This means that the angle at which a rotor blade meets the air is altered as the blade rotates with the hub. By photographing the blades in slow motion, they can be seen to rise and fall with the influence of the airflow and centrifugal forces. When the aircraft is taking off, the pilot holds the stick roughly central and the lift force is acting vertically. The pilot moves the stick forward. The advancing blade, furthest from the camera, decreases in pitch and flaps downwards. The retreating blade, nearest the camera, increases in pitch and flaps upwards. In effect, the rotor is tilted forward. It thus becomes the means of accelerating the aircraft forward as well as the means of supporting it in the air. The pilot decides to turn to the right. Stick right. The blade on the left flaps up. The blade on the right flaps down. The aircraft goes into a right-hand turn. In 1937, the first really successful helicopter, the Fokker Achilles, was announced. The flexibility and control of this machine were demonstrated when Hanna Reich flew it inside the Berlin Sports Stadium. Then another of the pioneers, Igor Sikorsky, who had been working on helicopter design from the beginning of the century, achieved success in America. All these discoveries helped to produce the helicopter as we know it today. It's still curious to look at, but it can fly in a way even surpassing the flight of birds. It takes off and lands vertically, hovers in the air, and even turns a full circle over the same spot. Helicopter design is constantly progressing. The precision of control is something of which D'Ascanio could only have dreamed. The British Bristol 171, a single rotor type, carries 3 passengers as well as the pilot. In contrast to the sleek lines of the Bristol is the angular body of the giant air horse, produced by the pioneer company started by the late Juan de la Cierva. The engine used in this helicopter is so powerful that the 3 rotors can lift a total weight of just over 8 tons. This enormous capacity at last fills a gap between the usual helicopters with their limited loads and the aeroplane. At the other end of this scale, the Cierva company has produced a small sister to the Air Horse, a neat-looking 2-seat personal helicopter called the Skeeter. The Ferry Company's Gyrodyne is one of the world's fastest helicopters. Here we see it traveling at 124.3 miles per hour. The Gyrodyne uses an offset propeller to counteract the torque reaction of the main rotor. This has the added advantage that the propeller gives additional thrust to drive the aircraft. In France, Louis Breguet, one of the leaders of helicopter technique, designed this 3-seater using superimposed contra-rotating rotors. A development of the pre-war German Fokker Achilles keeping the original rotor configuration has been made by Sud-Est and is designed to carry 6 people. Another French company, Sud-West, have developed an experimental helicopter with a rotor driven by jets at the blade tips. One of the attractions of the jet-driven helicopter is that as the driving force is at the tips of the blades, there is no torque reaction to correct, and tail rotors and such devices are not needed. Jet-driven rotors have also been developed in America. This experimental single-seater, built by the McDonnell Aircraft Corporation, is called Little Henry. The no-hands flying of this Hiller Hornet demonstrates well the great stability of helicopters employing jet-driven rotors. Helicopter types and designs are unending. The silhouette of the Sikorsky S-51, one of the first helicopters to go into large-scale production, is familiar throughout the world. It flew the first certificated U.S. helicopter airmail route, speeding airmail from the Los Angeles airport to the downtown post office and on to adjacent communities. The Sikorsky, now being built in England by Westlands, has been used for experiments in carrying mail by night, flying blind between 2 large towns. These services portend the day when large helicopters like this Sikorsky S-55 and the Bell HH-12 will be in regular service, carrying mail, passengers, and cargo between nearby cities and surrounding suburban areas. Smaller Bell helicopters are now being used on the land with great success, spraying crops and cattle, dusting orchards where the downwash from the rotors directs insecticide over and under the leaves. Rotor downwash is also used for a strange form of harvesting. It's a simple way of gathering walnuts which can't be damaged by their forceful descent. The helicopter is serving in the expansion of our vital oil reserves, transporting exploration parties swiftly and economically to hard-to-reach locations. In addition, it can also serve as a work platform for precise geological readings. A military helicopter, the Piasecki, or Flying Banana, is like something out of a story by Jules Verne or H.G. Wells. The Kaman, a military trainer, employs twin intermeshing rotors. These eliminate the necessity of a tail rotor. For emergency rescue, the helicopter is unrivaled. It can transport the injured to a hospital or the stranded to safety, whether the scene of emergency is battle-torn terrain or the expanse of a storm-swept sea. Admiral Byrd took helicopters on his 1946 Antarctic expedition for surveys more detailed than could be undertaken by a conventional aircraft. A good example of a small helicopter with an all-round view is the Hiller 360 with its Perspex bubble front. It is excellent for police control of traffic, aerial inspections, and similar work. The helicopter has provided new vantage points for the tourist. There is no better way of seeing the Grand Canyon. For herding cattle or elk, there is the comfort of a helicopter with its large field of vision and its ability to fly slowly. The helicopter has been used to do work that seemed impossible. Here, it speeds construction materials high up into the Welsh mountains to repair a dam. Yes, the helicopter has arrived. Prehistoric to look at, but so versatile that it fills an important gap in transport. Rotary wing flight is now a reality. The helicopter is part of a fantastic future in which you and I may fly about in our own private aircraft. But we must not be led astray by a dream. The helicopter will not supplant the car or the airplane, but as chemists and engineers continue their unending search for better fuels and lubricants for flight, for lighter and more powerful gasoline engines, for more efficient jet engines, and for improved airframe designs, the helicopter will enable us to fly with a freedom we've never had before.
So of course drones. I mean that's the new thing that's based on helicopter technologies, miniaturized, and anyways, fascinating in that montage of early aviation efforts. That shows up a lot of places. I have a NASA film that has it. It's called Aeronautical Oddities. And it just shows up lots and lots of places. And, you know, it's a testament to the fact that people documented what they were trying to do. And in some cases, they were trying to come up with a better way to fly, a more efficient way to fly, and one that maybe skirted patents that were in place for the flying machines that did exist. So, there you go. And thanks, Shell Oil, for all that. I love it. All right, let's learn about Alan, who is my brother.
know how it is with little boys. There are some days when they just seem to get into all sorts of mischief. This was one of Alan's days. And just when I was extra busy doing the washing. Karen had gone out in front because she thought her little brother was a nuisance. Do you have a little brother or sister? Does your little brother get into mischief sometimes when your mother leaves him alone in the yard? Alan. Oh, Alan, stop that. Such a boy. Alan knew he was supposed to water the plants only when Daddy was there to help. Daddy waters the plants, not the shoes. Alan, you go and sit down. Right over there. It was easy to see that I wasn't going to get much done that day if I didn't get Karen to help with Alan. And just then, Karen came to ask if she could go over to Patty's house. And what do you think I said? I said, no. I told her that I wanted her to take care of Alan. How do you suppose Karen felt about that? How do you suppose you would feel if you had to tell your best friend that you couldn't go and play at her house? No, I think you wouldn't like it any more than Karen did. I wanted her to understand why she had to stay and help. We talked about what it means to be a family. Do you know what it means? Families are for helping each other. We help Alan because he's little and he's our brother. We help Tiger because she's little and she belongs to our family too. And then I told Karen, now that she's bigger, Daddy and I need her to help us take care of the little ones. Karen made up her mind to help, even though she still didn't feel like it. I really didn't blame her. You know how it is with little boys. Fidget, squirm, kick, wiggle. I wonder what you would do if you were in Karen's place. As soon as she could, she went off and pretended he wasn't there. I had asked Karen to stay and watch her brother, but the first chance she had, she sat down to play with Tiger. The minute she wasn't looking, off he went again. Oh, my poor clothes. I almost ran out to stop Alan, but I wanted to see what Karen would do. She knew she hadn't done her job. How do you think Karen felt about not doing her job? At least Alan didn't seem to be bothered. I wondered if Karen would make up with Alan so they could really have fun together. I think Karen wanted to play with his plane, but she was afraid he wouldn't let her. Alan surprised her. I wonder why Alan just couldn't stay still. Do you suppose it was because he wanted his sister to pay attention to him? Perhaps that was his way of trying to make friends. Yes, it looked as though they were going to have fun together. They decided to build a house for the kitten. They worked together and the house grew higher and higher. And then Alan had to sing. I was proud of Karen because she didn't stay angry. Perhaps she was beginning to understand that that's just the way little children act. They built a new house, just Tiger's size. It didn't matter how many times they tried, Tiger wouldn't go in. How could Karen get the kitten to move into its new house? I think Karen had a good idea. Yes. The children were playing together so nicely that I thought they should have a special treat. In they went to wash their hands. We all got ready for a picnic lunch on the grass. And as an extra special treat for dessert, we had ice cream. Karen wanted to tell me everything that happened. At first, Alan caused her all sorts of trouble. She told me that he wet the clothes. She didn't think I knew. When he let her play with the airplane, though, she thought he wasn't such a bad brother after all. But she didn't find out how much fun he could be until they built Tiger's house together. She thought it was really fun getting to be friends with her brother. I told Karen she'd been a big help to me. Have you ever noticed? The nicer you are to your little brother or sister, the nicer he is to you.
Circus films. That just kind of ended. And regrettably, the beautiful Kodachrome at the beginning went away, and we were left with a faded print that we tried to salvage. Color-wise, didn't quite work, but that's fine. All right, so I got another film set up on the telecine. Oh, and people noticed my Lump T-shirt. Lump Gallery is a local art gallery where we used to do shows monthly there, like a long time ago, back in the day. But it got to the point where a lot of the shows that they were doing with their art things were actually taking up space, so that I couldn't set up chairs, so people would have to like sit around art, and I was like, yeah, it's not gonna work. So anyways, still very good friends with Lump, and we support them, and they started doing outdoor screenings during COVID, and I might actually go there and do a couple. Kind of return to my roots. Anywho, got like I said, another film set up on the scanner. This is I believe it's Safety on the Playground. I believe, if we're to believe the can. Let's find out. Enjoy.
A school playground in Santa Monica, California. Sometimes accidents occur here, and not the fun, as they do on most any playground. The boys and girls at this school were asked to tell how accidents happen and how they can be prevented. Let's listen.
One of the ways you can get hurt on the playground is if you're clumsy and you don't know how to play the game.
I know a guy just a while ago, he sprained 2 fingers trying to catch the ball. He like points it up and then it goes hits like that.
Yeah, he always misses it, so when I kick it to him, he catches it. When somebody else kicks it to him, he tries to catch it with his fingers and he crams his fingers.
One way not to catch the ball is stick your hands too far out in front of you and knock it down. It could hurt your fingers. That's one way not to catch the ball.
You gotta have balance to catch anything. By balance, I mean that you gotta move your feet in the right place, in the right, at the right time. I mean, you just can't move them anyway. When you move backwards, you gotta move backwards in a way where your feet aren't touching each other or together. You gotta keep even amount of weight on each leg, as you throw the ball or even as you catch it.
I've been here ever since kindergarten. This boy, he was in the 3rd grade and he bumped his head from off of the monkey bars. He fell because he wasn't playing right. He didn't obey the rules.
Well, like on the rings, there's a lot of crowding and people get hurt.
They line up on the board when they shouldn't. There should only be one person on the board. The way you're supposed to go in the rings is one person at a time, and you go all the way around. And nobody else is supposed to be on the board.
But sometimes a lot of people get on the board, and sometimes a lot of people get on the rings all at once, and they just pull to each other and collide.
Well, sometimes when somebody kick a ball, and well, we have a way of saying mine is to come straight to them. Well, a lot of people, when somebody say mine, they crowd around and they just want to get the ball away from everybody else, just to get up to kick the ball.
See, the ball is kicked and the guy calls for it, and he's waiting for it to come down, and then a bunch of guys crowd around and everybody just misses the ball.
If you let the guy catch the ball and I'd run into him or elbow him or something like that, then nobody would get hurt. Another thing some people do is run all over the playground, break up other people's games.
You don't have to run through the middle of a game.
Lots of the big sixth graders do that. It's the big boys that try to act like big shots.
Sometimes we'll be playing foursquare and somebody runs through the game and they'll kick the ball away. And then some sixth grader will pick it up and kick it over the fence.
Some of the sixth graders, they start trouble easily.
They're like in a line. If they want to get up first, they'll push and shove and hit.
They'll let you play, but they won't even give you a chance. They just get you out right away because they don't want you.
They don't think of anybody else, but I don't know why they do it. I guess they just forget and just don't care about the rules.
Another thing we have trouble with is stuff like sand on the kickball court.
Here's the kickball court, and the sandbox is right here. Every time these little kids dig a hole, it goes out over the fence.
Everybody that walks by the sandbox drags sand over the kickball court. And you go to kick the ball and you fall on your back.
You gotta make sure that the place where you're gonna play is ready for you to play on.
There's grass on the playground. It's from the kids who come here after school.
The kids that don't go to this school come and climb over the fence and break bottles and things.
Whenever you see glass on the ground, you should try and pick it up and throw it away in the trash can.
Some people throw acorns at each other. They throw them around. They get every place on the playground. Once someone got hit in the eye.
They should get rid of those trees.
You can't get rid of the trees. You should tell the custodian who keeps the playground clean.
We get ice cream after lunch, and some guys take it on the playground.
It's against the rules, but some guys do it anyway, and they're taking a real chance.
You should always clean out your pockets before you go on the playground.
Well, my best friend, he got up on my back, and I had a pencil in my back pocket, and he slipped down on it.
I had a pencil in my pocket. I forgot to take it out, and I ripped my shirt.
Some people wear leather sole shoes on the playground, and they're no good for the games.
You wear leather shoes so you won't hurt your foot when you're playing kickball, but make sure you have a kind of hard rubber sole on it so you won't slip and everything.
Tennis shoes are best, though.
The first time I wore tennis shoes, I found they won't slide or anything.
If you want to wear your other shoes, bring your tennis shoes in a bag and then change them.
A lot of accidents happen when somebody wants to win so bad they have to cheat or break the rules.
Some people try to make their own kind of rules.
Liners are out, but people say it's over and then they get in an argument about it.
Some of them don't like the rules, so they break them. Some of them forget the rules, and some of the new guys don't know them.
But the whole game just stops because of the liners, but they should take it over.
It would be a heck of a lot of fun if the guys would play fair.
I know a boy, he slides right to the base, and that's against the rules, because if you slide, you're out. If you don't follow the rules, you can start a fight.
Sometimes when Robert and Ronnie and all those other kids are playing Foursquare over there, they're yelling, they're playing dirty serves, slices and all this, and then they start yelling, and sometimes Raymond or Ronnie or Robert and Ronnie or somebody
I don't fight no more.
fight. They used to get in fights, but now...
I used to fight when I was in 3rd grade, but I don't no more. I'm hard to get in no more. Usually when there's a basketball game and the score is all tied up and there's only about 2 minutes to play and the ball's passed to you, well, you just forget what to do with it, and so you start dribbling. You might step on somebody's foot, and then they push you and you push them back, and then there's a fight.
And sometimes when we play kickball, if you make an out or miss the ball or something else, they'll start screaming at you like if they were your mother or something, screaming at you like crazy.
And then everybody crowds up. And sometimes the people, when there's a fight, the people shouldn't crowd up, because if they do, they might get involved.
Well, every time there's a fight, it always interrupts the recess. Almost everybody goes and looks at the fight. There's a whole swarm of kids just to look at one fight. Sometimes the two guys, they don't really want to fight. And so they just like stand, call names, and then a guy in the crowd, they might form a circle. They push the guys at each other.
I was trying to stop a little kid fight that was going on a couple of weeks ago. So when I was trying to break up the little kids that were fighting, the other kids were hitting me not to stop the fight. So there's a lot of encouragement when you start a fight.
There aren't many fights, but they're bad when they happen because one little fight can break up the whole game, and then there's no more game.
But the best players in school, they don't spend their time fighting and getting into arguments too much. They spend their time trying to get good at the game.
Losing or winning at this school doesn't mean a thing. Knowing how to play is the important thing. It takes a real person to do that.
Like Milt, he's good. He runs good and he just plays the game.
The really good guys don't get hurt. They just know how to handle themselves.
Just play the game and take care of yourself, and you'll be back to play tomorrow. It's just a game, man.
We've heard what the students on this playground think about safety. Do you agree with them, or do you agree? How can you, on your own playground, have a good time, but still make sure that your fun is not interrupted by an accident?
Yeah, that Safety on the Playground, second edition. Came out in the mid-60s, like 66. And this is when educational films started talking to kids and let them kind of just talk. And we see that in the 70s. And it's kind of interesting because you didn't have your main narrator until maybe the end. And this was meant to be shown and stopped. Which is probably why the sprockets were kind of messed up and why we were getting all those like jittery things. Is like teachers probably lost the loop, and then when they tried to start it again, then it started being jittery. So I apologize for that, but it's a fascinating film. It's kind of like it's like a man on the street, kid on the playground, talking about what's wrong, whose fault is it? It's those sixth graders. It's those kids that are always fighting. It's the acorns. It's really, I really do dig stuff like this because this is, I think, unscripted kids talking. There might have been a little bit of guidance, but yeah, in general. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in today. Very much appreciate what you have said in the comments and your eyeballs and your attention. I know there's other things going on today that require maybe more attention that you can return to, but we try to give you a little breather, a little break to delve into the past. Just want to say that it's important to rewind. We just found the devil in one of the cans. My assistant found it last week. And I don't know if you noticed, it is a smiley face that one person drew. And then somebody came back with a Sharpie or El Marco pen and added devil horns and a beard and a mustache, and wrote rewind. So heed the devil. I should also say, excuse me, to please rewind. I dug this back up. I realized I had not shown this a long time. This was also found in another can. Please rewind, smiley face with eyelashes, and love each other. And that includes yourself. We're all, as much as we maybe not like it, we're all the same. We all have the same needs. Even though social media does not allow us to realize that, it's the truth. We all need to be loved, want to be loved. We all are hungry. We all have to go potty, etc. So, thanks again, everybody. Hit like, hit subscribe, buy us some coffee, and we'll see you again tomorrow, Wednesday. Everybody, have a great rest of your day. Take care.